Hello, hello, hello. Mic check one, two. Mic check. Bruh, why is self improvement embarrassing? You feel me? I just don't really get it because. Hold on a minute. Is my mic on? Yeah. Because, my mum's in today, my sister's next door, like in the room next to me. And it's like, I feel like it's kind of embarrassing doing this and, speaking out loud, but like, why is self improvement embarrassing? I made a post on my Instagram, and this is a chance for me to kind of plug this Instagram account that I have. It's called Fate in Progress, and it's literally just me trying to document, the stuff that I'm doing outside of these podcasts. At the moment, so far that's nothing because ultimately I've uploaded that first one today, but I've reposted reels that I feel like will benefit me, and I will continue to do that, and like stuff like that. But like, I don't know, it just feels embarrassing doing self improvement, and I shouldn't be embarrassed about that. I don't know what's gonna make me stop being embarrassed. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. So, okay. So where we left off last time, let me just open the My Map and the self improvement report. Oh, also, this is a chance for me to reflect on the day that I've had. So I've had one call at work, and that went well. I didn't have any speech disfluencies, nothing like that. So I've not had a lot of experience or a lot of opportunities to speak today. Um, I guess I have avoided maybe one call, which I maybe should have had, but um, in general, I've not been disfluent with my speech today, so that is good, and I really want to shine some light on that, really. So that's that. I'm also just opening up the chat GBT. I will most definitely be using this a lot. Okay, so let's talk about the awareness phase. So this will be the kind of awkward shit. So it's the understanding the root cause of my social anxiety and speech disfluency. So if I just open up that chat GBT chat that we got, and I'm going to paste in this. So, okay, now I'm going to do the awareness phase. Um, Understanding the root cause of my social anxiety and speech disfluency. If I do a brain dump, can you help me? So this is where I feel like I've done this just on my own a handful of times. You feel me? Just staying up really late certain nights, and I do like to talk to myself sometimes. So that is that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up a um what's this called, notepad file, and just save this self improvement. I'll just put notes in here. So I'll make a new folder in my drive, call it notes, and this will be called self improvement notes, the file. Okay. So awareness phase. Okay. Awareness phase, brain dump. Awareness phase, brain dump. Now this is going to be hard trying to engage my brain into this. But okay, so let's say this. Now, I'm going to take a few things that were discussed during therapy anyway, so I already have a rough idea. I feel like I may be silent for a majority as I think, because obviously I'm talking because this is a podcast, but I also need to think as well, so there may be long pauses of silence. Okay, let me just move a few tabs around. So I've got the notepad on the left, Chrome on, sorry, notepad on the right, Chrome on the left. So I'm asking chat, give me starting points. Okay. So, okay. So, I know my social anxiety, and I'll just put stutter for now, but for the sake of this podcast, I'm calling this speech disfluency, but it's just easier to type. So I know my social anxiety and stutter very closely linked. I do think my stutter is a byproduct of my social anxiety. Now, I feel like I've had social anxiety since I was a child, and I think it's called a learnt behavior, likely from how my mum raised me. So, I do truly believe that my mum is autistic, and I know for a cold, hard fact she suffers with anxiety. Now, I feel like as a kid, I very likely picked up on her social and just general anxiety and digested it and soaked it up like a sponge. And thus, um, I developed social anxiety, or yeah, social anxiety, general anxiety, and a stutter as a byproduct. So it's like my mum's the type of person who would like, even now, she is in a constant state of fear. Um, and she always projects her anxieties and worries onto other people. One of my earliest memories is my mom saying we might be homeless. Um, and that really shook me up as a kid. My mom has been the type of mum to always wash her hands or sanitize her hands after touching anything, and projecting how if we don't wash our hands, we're going to die, etc. She really overreacts to everything, and I think this is how my anxiety likely started, just picking up on her anxiety and worries, and as a child, believing her. See, I almost had a stutter there, even thinking about that. Believing her, um, and ingesting all her anxiety and worry, and now I'm anxious and worried. My mum is so socially withdrawn. By the way, my mum is a single mother, so I never had a father, and I think this is also why I'm uncomfortable around men, but I think that's a separate topic to be fair. But I do think it's worth noting as I had no second parent for comparison. Um, now I'm older and I've met several people. I fully understand my childhood was very sheltered, and my mother is quote unquote a weirdo. Um, Let me also think. I do want to note my mum is such a motherly mother. As a kid, she never let us leave the house. For example, as she would say that we would get stabbed or murdered by the people outside. I literally only left the house for the first time um, without holding her hand when I was like 16. Like prior to that, my mum only let me out the house when I was with her and she wanted to go shopping, for example, and I had to hold her hand. I had no choice. Um, she always spoke for us, or she always spoke for me. I was never really allowed to speak to other people, as my mum, was scared of this and scared of other people hurting us. Um, so when it came to school, I found it so hard to talk to other people just because I never spoke to people because my mum didn't let me. Um, I do remember being probably a toddler, and my mum took me to speech therapy. Can't remember how old I was, but I must have been really young, which initially made me think I do have a stutter problem, as this has been happening since I was a child. However, I was ultimately dismissed from the speech therapy due to not even stuttering once during the first meeting. It was just chalked up to being something that I would um, grow out of, which it wasn't. But to be honest, I feel I that like I don't have a stutter problem. I feel like this is a deep rooted, long term anxiety issue, and this must have been present from childhood, as I must have soaked up my mum's anxiety early, wasn't allowed to speak to anyone. Um, so when I was in public or social settings, even as a child, I subconsciously had fear and worry and anxiety of other people, and thus started to close up, freeze up, aka stutter. As I guess physically my muscles would tense up. I believe this is called the freeze response. Um, this is extreme, deep levels of anxiety. I fully blame my mother. Now, an interesting point is that, well, for one, my mother doesn't stutter, but I think it's worth to note how my mother was raised by normal people and to parents who likely encouraged her to speak and stuff like that. But it's also worth noting how I have a sister who doesn't stutter. Now, why do I think this is the case when ultimately we shared the same parent who was projecting her fears onto us and didn't let either of us speak? Well, I'm a mother's boy to the core, and I'm very compliant. I do what I say, I guess, because I've been told to do something, and I don't know, I just do what I'm being told to. But my sister is not like this, and I guess they say that women are smarter than men socially. Um, and to be fair, I do feel like this is the case most of the time. Women are advanced than men, if I'm being honest. My sister really distanced herself from me and my mum, even from an early age. Now, why was this? My sister is younger than me. I think my sister saw how I was weird and likely autistic and fucking a freak, um, who was bizarre and not normal, and she probably subconsciously correlated my weirdness to my mum's weirdness, and realized early on, if she follows my mum and listens to my mum and is physically around my mum just like I was, she will turn out like me. My sister literally has lived her life in her room away from us, didn't go outside with us when Mummy wanted me and her to go shopping, for example. She really physically and mentally distanced herself from us. I feel like she did this to save her sanity, as I was the older child. I guess my mum would rant and vent about her fears to me more openly than my sister. Also, as my sister was young. Plus, I guess there's this notion that boys are strong, and Mum felt comfortable talking to me as I'm more chill and open to listen. Well, my sister is a fiery bitch, if I'm being honest, who is cold hearted and, to be fair, an awful human being. Um, mm, so, because sister didn't spend much time with us, she didn't soak up mum's anxiety like I did. I think this is important to note. I remember not really stuttering as much at home. I mean, maybe a little bit with my mom. I mean, yeah, I stutter with my mom like 15% of the time. That's still a pretty low ratio. I mainly stuttered during school, talking to teachers and pupils. They would laugh. They would make fun of me, even if it wasn't that deep to them. It was bullying. Even from primary school, I was getting bullied for stuttering. Um, See, I can't think of any. See, I feel like my stuttering, and then yeah, and then I got older, and now I can't talk, and now I can't talk without stuttering to other co-workers, friends, um, cashiers, or literally anyone I come in contact with. I feel like I have a fear of authority figures. Now, could that be from my mum, who had an authority over me, um, and she caused me fear and anxiety from her projections? And now my brain is correlating this with literally anyone else I come in contact with, as I feel very um in in and small and quiet and invisible. I do feel like it's worth noting. I do feel like my stutter started at home, being isolated from people, and being around my mum, who gave me fear about literally everything. I don't really recall, I don't know, like her ever making fun of me or whatever for stuttering, which is why I feel like this reinforces how it's not a stutter problem, and it's just a byproduct of anxiety and fear of social situations. Like, mummy is the safe space, as she did isolate me and lock me away in my room, away from people, and told that people are bad and scary. I think this is it right here. And then just unconsciously, I carried that. My body has a physical reaction, and I get scared and tense up and stuff. It's all a mind game thing. I feel like I need to unlearn this coping mechanism. People aren't scary. Situations aren't scary. I can talk without getting tense and scared. Okay, let's see what chat's also saying there. Okay. Okay, so that's my brain dump. Um, Now let me answer the questions ChatGPT has asked. Okay, so that was good. That was a good little rant there, and I think I've kind of hit the nail on the head anyway. Okay, boom. Okay, child. Okay, so ChatGPT has asked childhood and early experiences. When did I first notice myself feeling anxious about speaking? Ah, I literally don't remember since I must have had this from a very young age. I do remember stuttering in primary school during presentations, or just generally speaking, or just generally speaking about Pokemon to kids at school. I remember having a hard time saying Giratina. Were there times as a kid when I was laughed at, ignored, or corrected harshly for how I spoke? Oh my god, yes, all the time. All the time. Maybe I feel like I'm ignoring those moments and invalidating them and only focusing on how it started. But yes, the kids at school and shit, even work, are awful. Um, Shit, even public workers like hairdressers used to laugh at me. Um, yeah, this really knocked my confidence as a kid. Um, Laughed at every time I spoke, ignored even now in the office as people don't want to speak to me. Um, but never really corrected harshly, just generally corrected. It makes me feel like hurting myself and depressing thoughts about life, and if there is a point, I feel bad. I feel stupid, I feel silly, I feel incapable. Nice. Um, okay, next one. How did teachers, parents, or classmates react when I talked or made mistakes? Laughed. Did I ever feel like being quiet or invisible was safer? Yes. I still do. I feel like even in meetings in work, I just can't speak up. Not even in a stutter way, like in a shy way. Like, to be honest, I feel like I'm an extrovert, but because of my social anxiety, it's all learnt behavior. So I wanna talk a lot and share my views, but I just can't get it out. You feel me? I'm not even stuttering. I just can't speak. And then when I do speak, I stutter. You feel me? And then when I'm put on the spot, I completely freeze, not just physically, but mentally too. Like, no thoughts in my mind, so I can't even share my views. Anyway, speaking and communication memories. What situations made my speech freeze or block the most? Yeah, work, ordering food, strangers, friends, when I first got to know them, but then once I would know these friends, my stuttering would be less and more controllable. Um, what happens in my body before I stutter? Yeah, tight. Yeah, I think tight. I think shortness of breath, blank mind, racing heart, sweaty, tight chest, tight throat. Do I relay moment? Also, do I replay moments after conversations thinking about what I should have said? Yes, all the time. And even before talking, I'll think about and plan what to say, but then I always either can't speak or when I do speak, I stutter. What thoughts come up right away before try to ordering food, pharmacy, literally talking to anyone who works customer facing roles. Um, what thoughts come up right before I try to speak? Literally no thoughts at all. Okay, self image and identity. Do I see myself as someone who can't talk well or someone who's awkward? I feel like. Hmm, do I see myself as someone who can't talk or someone who's awkward? I feel like I'm both. But if, and yeah, and I think I'm both. However, if I'm being logical here, I'm not. I'm not either of those things. I'm someone who has deep rooted social anxiety from my mother, who has developed bad responses, coping mechanisms to deal with this social anxiety in the form of freeze response and tensing up and yeah, stuttering, and thus being awkward since I have no social skills due to being isolated as isolated from my childhood, um, starting from mother's fears of me being around people, and then um, learned behavior that my mum didn't have friends or go out, so I didn't. And then not knowing how to make friends since I never had friends or could talk. How do I feel about my voice accent or the way I sound? See, I feel like my voice is very high pitched, and really the voice comes from the tip of my throat. Um, it's what I call a high pitched autistic um, voice. Um, I do feel like well, when I was in school, I talked, quote unquote, I'll probably be cancelled, but I don't give a fuck. I used to talk black. I used to put on a fake deep voice and speak in a certain way. And to be honest, I feel like this helps me talk. Then I feel like when I got to do this voice, I would stutter. Then, a few years later, I watched and practiced an American vowel sound pronunciation video for like 3 hours a day, and I developed an American accent. And then I didn't stutter as much with this new accent. Then when I returned to my normal autistic voice, I would stutter. Is there pressure to sound a certain way, more put off, confident, or RP British, like you mentioned? No, but I'm interested in learning an British RP accent to see if I do this, then my stutter might go in the same way when I did an American accent. My stutters seem to go. Also, do you want to talk a little more deeply and less high pitched from my top of my throat? I feel like that is also a bad learned behavior that I've got from literally just not speaking a lot. It's like if you don't swim a lot and was never taught how to swim, you just flap around and move a little in the water. But once you learn how to swim, you can move in the water more efficiently. I feel like due to my social anxiety and lack of social skills, due to my lack of talking from childhood, I'm not even speaking properly in my throat. You feel me? Do I ever compare my communication to others too much? Yeah. I wish I could speak without stuttering like others. Social anxiety side. When I'm around people, what's the exact moment I start to feel anxious? When I think I'm going to have to talk, or when they're looking at me, or talking to me. Do I feel like I'm being watched or judged even if nobody says anything? Oh my god, yes. Do I avoid eye contact or such situations? Oh my god, yes. Have I ever had a social experience that went badly and stuck in my head as proof I can't talk? Oh my god, yes. All the time. Beliefs and triggers. What do I believe will happen if I start to influence people? What do I believe will happen if I start it in front of people? What do I believe will happen? Nothing, I guess. I mean, people will. Hmm. I don't know. People will feel embarrassed for me. Will feel awkward. What's the worst case scenario my brain always imagines? My brain doesn't imagine anything. I guess someone saying or thinking, I'm not good enough to do something since I can't talk. What are some beliefs I might have picked up? E.g., I must sound perfect talking, being judged, mistakes, humiliation. Yes, all those things. So I must sound perfect. Talking, being judged, mistakes, humiliation. Moving forward, optional reflection after done. What parts of me want to be more confident or expressive? I want to. Uh, what parts of me? What parts of me to be more confident or expressive? Voice. Um, what moments have I felt most free and fluent when talking? What was different then? I'm fluent right now because I'm on my own. What would comfortable speaking actually feel like to me? Just being able to say what I want. Right. Oof, right. Let's paste in that. Is there a way on ChatGPT to have more of a thinking or deep research? Hard. Deep research thinking. Okay, so it says. Okay, what does? Okay, now I'm asking chat. Okay, what does these options mean? Thinking, deep research, study and learn. I wanna get the most out of Chat GPT here. This one is deep. Okay. And as ChatGPT's, okay, excellent question. And yes, this phase is deep. So knowing which mode to be in and how to use me best for each make a massive difference. Here's what those options mean. It's not doing what I'm asking for. Okay, no. Yes. If your project is weak, actually thinking phase, emotional, and personal. Uh, yeah, thinking phase. Okay. So let's copy and then that's a lot. Let me save this note as well in my notepad. Okay, so I've turned on thinking. So it's thinking quite deeply. Now there's a lot of typos in here. What I'm planning to do is actually what I should have done is ask ChatGPT to kind of tidy it up slightly. You know, fix all of the typos first. But okay, cool. I think it can understand it anyway. Okay, the answer is this is really strong. Thank you for sharing all of that. You've already done the hardest work. You've put the mess into words. I'll help you turn that into useful insights and a clear, practical next step plan for your awareness phase so you can keep building forward. I'll do three things here. Summarize the key themes I see in your dump. List clear root cause hypotheses, what's most likely driving this. Give a compact copy pasta awareness phase plan, journaling template, and immediate exercises you can use right now. Okay. So, key themes I see in your brain dump: modeled anxiety from your mum, her constant fear, warnings, homeless, germs, danger, overprotection, and social withdrawal likely created a message that the world is dangerous and speaking is risky. Early isolation, lack of speaking practice, being prevented from talking to others, always held by your mum. You miss the practice. You miss the practice children usually get with peers. Learnt freeze and physical tension. You describe classic anxiety, psychological, ooh, what's that word? S- Physio, oh, physiology, physiology? Classic anxiety physiology before speaking. Tight chest, throat, mind blank. That's a freeze, flight, fight response interfering with speech. Bullying and humiliation at school. Peers laughed and bullied you for stuttering. Powerful reinforcement that speaking equals negative outcomes. Authority slash being on the spot fear. Sorry, I feel like I'm not paying attention as I'm speaking. Bullying and humiliation at school. Peers laughed and bullied you for stuttering. Powerful reinforcement that speaking equals negative outcomes. Authority slash being on the spot fear. You freeze, especially with teachers, work, or anyone customer facing. This may be tied to early parental authority dynamics. Voice identity strategies help. When you use a different voice, deep voice, American accents, your stutter reduced. Showing voice slash role shifts can disengage the anxious pattern. Sibling difference equals protective distancing. Your sister distanced herself from the family anxiety and didn't soak it up. This suggests environmental uptake matters. Self image and harsh beliefs. You carry beliefs like I must sound perfect, I'm awkward, or people will judge me, which maintain avoidance and tension. You're fluent alone slash one-to-one. This is huge. It shows the core problem is the social reaction, aka anxiety, and not an, what's that word? Immutable physiological stuff in all contexts. So I am right there. Okay, root cause hypotheses, practical framing. These are not diagnoses, they're working hypotheses to guide what to test and change. So, primary hypothesis childhood social learning. You absorbed your mum's anxiety and avoidance, which taught your brain that social situations and speaking are threats. Over time, your body learned to tense slash freeze when speaking socially, aka speech blocks, stuttering. Secondary reinforcing factors, peer bullying and humiliation moments, strengthen the belief that speaking leads to negative social outcomes. Compensatory beliefs. Using alternate voices slash accents temporarily breaks the anxious pattern. Useful hack to exploit. Identity and lack of practice, isolation and lack of corrective, safe social practice blocked development of social skills, making each social interaction harder and reinforcing anxiety. Okay, practical awareness phase. Copy paste into Google Doc. You can use this as your template to continue the awareness work. It's short, actionable, and focused. So, awareness phase, brain dump template. Okay, childhood and early memories. Earliest memory of anxiety, speaking issues, memorable parental message, what mum said about it. Okay, this is more of just like a general sort of, memorable parental messages, what mum said about the world. People, did adults restrict my speaking or interactions? Early speech therapy. Mm, okay, immediate concrete exercises you can do right away. Do these straight away after a brain dump. They're short, actionable, and designed to reduce overwhelm. 3, 2, 1 grounding. 3 things you can see, 2 things you can touch, 1 thing you can hear. It helps calm the nervous system before reflecting or recording. Box breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds. Repeat 4 times. Lowers physical arousal so your thoughts don't vanish when you speak. Record a 60-second dump, audio on phone. Speak your raw 60-second memory of one short scenario, e.g., that school moment. Listen back once calmly. Observe, did your voice tighten? Did you rush? Any stutter? Quick evidence test. Write one sentence that contradicts a core belief, e.g., people don't think less of me for stuttering. Find a small interaction to test it. Order a drink using one sentence. Log how it went. How to listen to your recording, what patterns to look out for, and how to fix them. Pacing, rushed or clipped, breath, shallow versus diaphragmatic, tension, voice sounds high, tight, or strange, disfluencies, where they happen, start of sentence, when nervous, filler words, frequent like, note when they appear, emotional tone, do you sound scared, flat, monotone, or relaxed? How to target one pattern per week. If rushing, practice slow phrases. Read 3 times, deliberately pause at commas. If breath shallow, breathe, place hand on belly, practice 5 slow diaphragmatic breaths before speaking. If tension, do 30-second neck slash shoulder roll before speaking and do a 10-second yawning technique to relax the throat. If blocks at sentence start, add a tiny prep breath or a short word slash phrase to begin with. Okay, speak. Social behavior experiments. Pick one for this week. Say hi, please, when ordering coffee in short line. Send a voice note. Use an alternative voice. Mental notes on blame and compassion. So you're right that that environment shaped you. That's not your fault. Blaming your mum isn't the goal. Recognizing the pattern is. Use the insight to free yourself, not to get stuck in anger. Try one compassionate sentence after each dump. I learned survival strategies as a child. I can relearn safer ones now. Next step for awareness. Okay, when you feel solid capturing patterns and triggers, we move to knowledge phase. Okay, so that's quite interesting. So I like the first bit of that, to be honest. Okay, so this is great, but now I need you to tidy up my dump, etc. Fix typos or grammar and just make it more readable. Um, so I can paste it in my analysis section. And I love what you did with the sections 1 and 2. So one is the key themes I see in your brain dump, root cause hypotheses. Um, so I need you to make this all into something I can just paste into my awareness phase. Okay, go. And let me copy everything I just sent in that word notepad, and paste, and let ChatGPT do its thing. I hope I'm not on the thinking thing. No, I'm not. Okay, as it's doing that, I'm just gonna have a look at my phone. A little quick max. Okay, okay, perfect. This is exactly the kind of deep, honest material that belongs to your awareness phase. What I'll do is keep every idea and personal tone intact, but I'll fix grammars, typos, clarity, reorder it slightly so it flows as a readable personal reflection, format it into clear sections. Okay, cool. Okay, so understand record. Okay, so here's the brain dump. So I know my social anxiety and stutter are closely linked. I think my stutter is a byproduct of my social anxiety. I felt socially anxious since childhood, and I believe it's a learned behavior, likely from how my mum raised me. I truly believe my mum is autistic, and I know for a fact that she suffers from anxiety. As a kid, I likely picked up on her social and general anxiety, absorbed it like a sponge, and internalized it. Because of that, I developed social anxiety, general anxiety, and eventually a stutter as a byproduct. My mum has always been in a constant state of fear, often projecting her anxieties and worries onto other people. One of my earliest memories is her telling me we might be homeless. That really shook me up as a child. She was and still is obsessed with cleanliness, constantly washing or sanitizing her hands, warning if we didn't wash ours, we'd get sick and die. She overreacted to everything, and I think that's how my anxiety began, by believing her fears and internalizing them until they became my own. My mum is also extremely socially withdrawn. She's a single mother, so I never had a father figure, which I think is part of why I feel uncomfortable around men, though that's probably a separate topic. Still, it's worth noting because I never had a second parent for balance or comparison. Now that I'm older, I I realize how sheltered my childhood was and how frankly my mum is quite an odd person. To her credit, she's very protective, motherly mother, but to an extreme. She never let us leave the house because she thought we'd get stabbed or murdered by people outside. I didn't go out on my own for the first time until I was about 16. Before that, I could only leave the house with her, and even then, I had to hold her hand. She always spoke for me. I was never really allowed to talk to other people because she was afraid they might harm us. Because of that, when I got to school, I found it incredibly hard to talk to people. I just had no experience speaking with people because I wasn't allowed to. I remember being taken to speech therapy as a toddler. I must have been very young. That initially made me think I had a stuttering problem from birth, but the therapist dismissed me after the first session because I didn't stutter once during it. They said I'd grow out of it, which never happened. Looking back, I don't think I ever had a psychological stutter or a physiological stutter. I think it's a deeply rooted long term anxiety issue that started in childhood. I absorbed my mum's anxiety early on, wasn't allowed to speak to anyone, and when I finally had to, my subconscious associated it with fear. My body responded by tensing up, the freeze response, and that came out as stuttering. This runs deep. I fully blame my mother. An interesting point is that my mum doesn't stutter, even though she's anxious. She was raised by two normal parents who likely encouraged her to speak, unlike how she raised me. I also have a sister who doesn't stutter, even though we share the same mum. Why? Because I was the obedient one, a classic mummy's boy. I did whatever I was told. My sister, though younger, was opposite, fiery, independent, socially smarter. She distanced herself from my mum and me even from an early age. I think she recognized that my mum and I were both weird in her eyes, and she realized early on that if she stayed too close to my mum, she'd end up like us. To so she kept to her room, avoided going out with us, and rarely joined in. I think she did this to protect her sanity. As the older child, I was also the one my mum vented to more about her fears, her worries, everything. She probably felt more comfortable dumping that onto me because I was calm, quiet, and willing to listen. My sister was cold, fiery, and didn't tolerate it. Because of that, my sister avoided absorbing that anxiety, but I didn't. I soaked it up. At home, I didn't stutter much, maybe around 15% of the time with my mum, but at school, it was constant. Teachers, classmates, they'd laugh, mimic, or mock me. Even if it wasn't cruel in their eyes, it still felt like bullying. I was teased for stuttering from primary school onwards. As I got older, it became worse. Now I find it hard to talk without stuttering to anyone co-workers, friends, cashiers, strangers. I've always been especially anxious around authority figures. Maybe that's because my mom was an authority figure who also scared me. Well, I wouldn't say scared me. And now my brain associates anyone in authority with fear and submission. I feel small, quiet, invisible. I don't think my mum ever made fun of my stutter, but being around her, isolated, fearful, constantly warned about danger, created the perfect storm for social anxiety. My body now automatically tenses and locks up in social situations because deep down it's still reacting to that fear. That's what causes the stutter. It's not a speech issue, it's anxiety in motion, a physical reaction to a lifetime of fear. I need to unlearn this coping mechanism. People aren't dangerous. Speaking isn't dangerous. I can talk without being tense or scared. And then guided questions and reflections, so childhood and early experiences. When did I first notice myself feeling anxious about speaking? I don't exactly remember, but I must have had this from a very young age. I remember stuttering in primary school during presentations or even when talking about Pokemon. I remember struggling to say Giratina. Were there times as a kid when I was laughed at, ignored, or corrected harshly for how I spoke? Constantly, kids, teachers, even hairdressers laughed at me. It destroyed my confidence. I felt stupid, incapable, and small. Sometimes I still do. How did teachers, parents, or classmates react when I talked or made mistakes? They'd laugh, always laughter. Did I ever feel like being quiet or invisible was safer? Absolutely. Even now in meetings at work, I can't speak up. Not because of a stutter, but from sheer fear. The weird thing is, I think I'm actually an extrovert deep down. I want to talk and share my thoughts, but the anxiety freezes me. When I do finally speak, I stutter. When I'm put on the spot, my mind goes completely blank. Speaking and communication memories. What situations make my speech freeze or block the most? Work, ordering food, talking to strangers or cashiers, any customer facing role, and early interactions with new friends. What happens in my body before I stutter? Shortness of breath, blank mind, racing heart, sweating, tight chest, tight throat. Do I replay conversations afterwards all the time? I also plan conversations ahead, but I still freeze or stutter when it happens. What thoughts come up right before I speak? Usually none, my mind goes completely blank. Self image and identity. Do I see myself as awkward or someone who can't talk well? Emotionally, yes. Logically, no. I know I'm someone who's learnt these patterns from childhood anxieties and isolation. It's not that I can't talk, I just learnt bad coping mechanisms that I now need to unlearn. How do I feel about my voice or the way I sound? My voice is high pitched and comes from the top of my throat. I used to speak with a deeper, more black sounding voice at school, and I noticed that helped. Later, I practiced an American accent for hours every day, and my stutter basically disappeared. But when I switched back to my natural voice, it returned. That tells me it's psychological, maybe tied to identity and tension in how I produce sound. Is there pressure to certain is there pressure to sound a certain way? Really, but I'm curious about learning receptive pronunciation RP to see if it improves fluency like the American accent did. I'd also like to train myself to speak from deeper in my chest rather than my throat. It feels more natural and confident. Do I compare my communication to others? Yes, I wish I could speak as effortlessly as other people. Social anxiety side. When do I start feeling anxious around people? As soon as I sense I'll have to speak, even if someone just looks at me. Do I feel watched or judged even when nobody says anything? Always. Do I avoid eye contact or certain situations because of fear or freezing? Yes, constantly. Have I had bad social experiences that stuck with me? Many they still play in my head as proof as I can't talk. Beliefs and triggers. What do I believe will happen if I stutter? Realistically, nothing. But emotionally, I imagine people judging me or thinking I'm incompetent. What's the worst case scenario my brain imagines? People thinking I'm not good enough, that I can't handle basic conversations. What beliefs have I picked up on? I must sound perfect. Talking means being judged. Mistakes equal humiliation. Moving forward, uh, what parts of me want to be more confident or expressive? My voice. When have I felt most fluent or free while speaking? When I'm alone. Um, what would comfortable speaking feel like? Being able to say exactly what I want without fear or tension. Okay, cool. So let me copy that. So that is good actually. So self improvement report. So I think I'll have to make several reports if I'm being brutal. Yeah, I will have to because that is long, ain't it? So let's remove all of that. So under awareness phase, I'm going to paste. Okay, so that is like that. And then what I want is, would you like me to make a note of, so I want chat to do, um, so I want, let me just copy all this shit. So now I want you to do the analysis, to be fair. Something like this. And I just pasted in section 1 and 2 that chat just did. So self improvement report. So that's all of that. That's all of that. Okay, so I've got the brain dump. So that's that. That's a big brain dump. Guided questions and reflection. Guided questions and reflection. I want to get rid of those bloody emojis. That's so annoying, those fucking emojis. There's all of that. Childhood early experiences, speaking and communication memories, self image and identity, social anxiety side, beliefs and triggers, moving forward. Okay. Okay, perfect. You're describing the exact deep reflection that turns a brain dump into a psychological roadmap. Here's how I'd approach the analysis phase when you send your brain dump. Okay, so key themes. I'll pull out recurring emotional and behavioral threads. Things like, what's this? Uh, yeah, just do it. What the hell? Wait, chat. What's going on? I shared my brain dump and answered your guided questions. Now I need you to do the analysis. It's completely bugging out, this thing. Please paste your full brain dump again. Oh lord, okay. Okay. Oh no. That's something completely fucking different. Self improvement report. Uh, Copy, paste. Done. Okay, key themes in your brain dump. Modeled anxiety from your mum. You absorbed your mum's constant fear based. So you absorbed your mum's constant fear based worldwide anger, germs, threat, loss. The early world isn't safe conditioning created a nervous system always on alert. It wasn't just ideas, it was embodied fear you internalized before you had even words before it. Parental overprotection and lack of exposure. Your mom's overprotection meant you missed the normal social trial and error most kids experience. The learning to talk to people, reps. Because she spoke for you, your brain never got to wire social speaking as safe. When you finally face those situations, your nervous system treated them as first time danger. Freeze responses and psychological conditioning or physiological conditioning. Your tight throat, blank mind, short breath, those aren't random. They're signs of the freeze response, a survival mechanic you learnt as a child when speaking felt unsafe. Now, the older protective reflexes fires automatically in adult social situations. Bullying and humiliation as reinforcement. Being laughed at for starting reinforce a link between speaking and being hurt. Each humiliation was a new data point confirming the subconscious belief when I speak, bad things happen. Authority equals danger. Your fear of speaking to teachers, bosses, or cashiers likely mirrors your early relationship with your mum. Authority plus unpredictability equals submission and silence. It's not rational, it's a conditioned association. Voice and identity disconnection. You found fluency when using a deeper or American accent. That's huge. It shows your stutter isn't mechanical, it's contextual. Brilliant, yes. When you shift identity through voice, you bypass your habitual anxious self. The active voice interrupts the anxiety loop, a key insight for practice later. Sibling difference as evidence of emotional absorption. Your sister distanced herself from your mum's anxiety and stayed socially freer. You, the compliant and receptive one, absorb the emotional climate, a classic example of how temperament plus environment shape anxiety patterns. Self image built on judgment. You carry perfectionist social beliefs. I must sound perfect, people are judging me. That keep your nervous system in constant performance mode. That mental tension becomes physical tension, which becomes stuttering. Fluency in safe settings. Emotional, not mechanical block. Your ability to speak fluidly alone or one on one confirms it's not a speech defect, it's a conditioned anxiety pattern. You're fluent when your body feels safe. Okay, so cause hypothesis, working models. These are not diagnoses, just practical frameworks to guide how you work on this. Primary hypotheses, conditioned fear response. You learned inexplicably that speaking and social exposure are unsafe. Your body now reacts to social cues as threats, triggering muscle tension and cognitive shutdown. The stutter is the surface symptom of a deeper freeze response. Secondary reinforcement, humiliation, and ridicule. Childhood teasing and public embarrassment cemented the speaking equals pain pattern, strengthened avoidance and internal shame, development gap, lack of social whips. Because you were isolated, you missed formative years of trial and error social learning. Your brain never got to habitual to normal social unpredictability. Each social encounter still feels like a test, not a conversation. Identity based block. Your natural voice is tied to your anxious identity. When you switch to another accent, you bypass that identity, which suggests your voice is neurologically and emotionally linked to your self image. The work ahead will involve reintegrating your voice with safety, not performance. Core emotional beliefs. The world isn't safe, people will judge me, speaking is dangerous, mistakes equals humiliation. These beliefs keep your body on edge even when you logically know better. Practical insights for moving forward. Your nervous system needs retraining before your voice does. The stutter is your body's language for I don't feel safe. Breathwork, grounding, body relaxation, and gradual exposure will be key. Voice work as identity shift. Keep experimenting with accents, tones, and deeper resonance, not to fake confidence, but to teach your nervous system what calm speech feels like. Rewrite your story, literally. You're not someone who stutters, you're someone whose nervous system learned the wrong lesson and now it's unlearning it. Journal the wins every time. Da, 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 da. Okay, cool. Um, what I want to do is just check that this matches up with what they with what chat said. Um, in the first message because I thought that was fucking great. So that's that. Um, okay, so I'm highlighting all of this. Okay, just want to check if you've missed anything you said in here before. Yeah, good check. Everything from that earlier version is fully covered in the detail I just gave. Yeah, that's fine. Practical insights for moving forward. Okay, cool. Yeah, so step three, I sort of need you to convert that into this summary. So let me highlight number three, and then number two, and then number one. Cool, let me paste that in. Okay, perfect. This is the point where everything you've written and analyzed gets distilled into a single awareness. So, awareness summary, looking back, I can see that my social anxiety and speech disfluency weren't random. They were learned responses. Growing up, I absorbed my mum's fear based overview. Her constant warnings about danger, germs, and people taught us that the world wasn't safe and that speaking up could bring harm. Um, some more journal stuff. So I'll say, this is great. Could you add this um, summary under sections 1 and 2? Also, could you make sections 1 and 2 more like I, not you? So it's like I'm writing it. So let's do that, and then I'm gonna move 3, and then sections 1 and 2, so I can copy and paste into my doc. So could you make 1 or 2 more? Okay, cool. Pasting that all in. And in the Word doc, I'm putting in chat GBT analysis will be underneath. Okay, so key things from my brain down. Blah, 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 da, da, da. Oh, it's still typing it. Oh, right, yeah. What time is this? Hour 26. Right, okay, cool. I'm gonna go to the toilet. I'll let ChatGPT do its generation, and I'll get right back to you. Okay, fuck. The toilet is in use, so I can't use that. Okay, so ChatGPT analysis. It looks like it's all pasted in. Let me copy that. So key themes from my brain dump, root cause hypotheses, and then what is this? The summary. That's a big summary. So let me paste that into the notepad. Cool. Save that. Paste that into the report. Okay, and then paste. So this should be called key themes in my brain dump, and then analysis, key themes in my brain dump, and then yeah, analysis, key themes in my brain dump, root cause hypotheses, working models, and then awareness summary, understanding my roots. Let me copy all of this and let me say, okay, cool. Thank you, chat. What I really want from you is now to kind of tidy up the formatting so I can paste it directly in my doc. I need the following to be headers. Awareness phase. That then goes on to brain dump. That then goes on to guided questions, and then guided questions, and then I'll put and then sub headers for childhood. Actually, no, because that is there. Yeah, that is there already. Actually, no, yeah. And then, okay, so that's heading 2. What's this one? Oh, it's heading 3. Oh, so that's why. So analysis, this one needs to be heading 2. That's analysis. Okay. That's actually quite good. That's really good, actually, yeah. So brain dump, that needs to be heading. Yeah, I can just do that myself. Brain dump, Or does that need to be, let's say, self-improvement report awareness phase? And that's good. I've got the brain dump, I've got the guided questions, then I got the analysis. I think this is perfect. I think this is absolutely perfect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save. I need to run downstairs and I do need to go to the toilet. And I'll read all of this and I'll call this one a session. Ooh, okay, I'm done. That was a fucking wet one. Right, okay. Here we go. Let me save this notepad, put that in there, open this up. Self-improvement. Here we go. This is the self-improvement report awareness phase. Let me change the title of this. Awareness phase. I think I'll have to make a report per phase. Just because this one's fucking huge. I mean, how many pages? 8 pages. Fucking hell. Right, okay. Improvement report awareness phase. Brain dump. Actually, I've already spoken about this, but may as well, you know, repeat it and then change anything that I need to. It's good practice anyway. I know my social anxiety and stutter are closely linked. I think my stutter is a byproduct of my social anxiety. I felt socially anxious since childhood. Is that an extra space? Yeah. I felt socially anxious since childhood, and I believe it's a learnt behaviour, likely from how my mum raised me. I truly believe my mum is autistic, and I know for a fact that she suffers from anxiety. As a kid, I likely picked up on her social and general anxiety, absorbing it like a sponge and internalizing it. Because of that, I developed social anxiety, general anxiety, and eventually a stutter as a byproduct um, from from my fear of people and speaking. My mum has always been in a constant state of fear, often projecting her anxieties and worries onto other people. One of my earliest memories is her telling me we might be homeless. That really shook me up as a kid. She was and still is obsessed with cleanliness, constantly washing or sanitizing her hands, warning that if we didn't wash ours, we'd get sick and die. We'd get sick and die. She overreacted to everything, and I think that's how my anxiety began, by believing her fears and internalizing them until they became my own. My mum is also extremely socially withdrawn. She's a single mother, so I never had a father figure, which I think is part of the reason why I feel uncomfortable around men, though that's probably a separate topic. Still, it's worth noting because I never had a second parent for balance or comparison to what behavior is normal for an adult. Now that I'm older, I realize how sheltered my childhood was and how, frankly, my mum is quite an odd person. To her credit, she's a very protective, motherly mother, but to an extreme. She never let us leave the house because she thought we'd get stabbed and murdered by people outside. I didn't go out on my own for the first time until I was about 16. Before that, I could only leave the house with her, and even then, I had to hold her hand. She always spoke to me. I was never really allowed to talk to other people because she was afraid they might harm us. Because of that, when I got to school, I found it incredibly hard to talk to people. I just had no experience speaking with people because I wasn't allowed to. I remember being taken to speech therapy as a toddler. I must have been very young. That initially made me think I had a stuttering problem from birth, but the therapist dismissed me after the first session because I didn't stutter once during it. They'd said I'd grow out of it, which never happened. Looking back, I don't think I ever had a physiological stutter. I think it's a deeply rooted long term anxiety issue that started in childhood. I absorbed my mum's anxiety early on, wasn't allowed to speak to anyone, and when I finally had to, my subconscious associated it with fear. My body responded by tensing up, the freeze response, and that came out as stuttering. This runs deep. I fully blame my mother. An interesting point is that my mum doesn't stutter, even though she's anxious. She was raised by two normal parents who likely encouraged her to speak and be independent. Be independent, unlike how she raised me. I also have a sister who doesn't stutter, even though we share the same mum. Why? Because I was the obedient one, a classic mummy's boy. I did whatever I was told. My sister, though younger, was the opposite, fiery, independent, socially smarter. She distanced herself from my mum and me even from an early age. I think she recognized that my mum and I were both weird in her eyes, and she realized early on that if she stayed too close to my mum, she'd end up like me. So she kept to her room, avoided going out with us, and rarely joined in. I think she did this to protect her sanity. Um, I think she did this unconsciously. Yeah, unconsciously to protect her sanity. As the older child, I was also the one my mum vented to more about her fears, her worries, everything. She probably felt more comfortable dumping that onto me because I was calm, quiet, and willing to listen. My sister was cold, fiery, and didn't tolerate it. Because of that, my sister avoided absorbing that anxiety, but I didn't. I soaked it up. At home, I didn't stutter much, maybe around 15% of the time with my mum, but at school it was constant. Teachers, classmates, they'd laugh, mimic, or mock me. Even if it wasn't cruel in their eyes, it still felt like bullying. I was teased for stuttering from primary school onwards, and as I got older, it became worse. Um, it became worse, and thus I deeply went into my shell to avoid social interactions due to the negative experiences I had trying to communicate. Now I find it hard to talk without stuttering to anyone. Co-workers, friends, cashiers, strangers, etc. I've always been especially anxious around authority figures, even in the lowest form. For example, fast food workers. Maybe that's because my mum was an authority figure who scared me with her fears, and now my brain associates anyone in authority with fear and submission. I feel small, quiet, invisible. I don't think my mum ever made fun of my stutter, but being around her, isolated, fearful, and constantly warned about danger, created the perfect storm for social anxiety. My body now automatically tenses and locks up in social situations because deep down it's still reacting to that fear. That's what causes the stutter. It's not a speech issue, it's an anxiety in motion, a physical reaction to a lifetime of fear. I need to unlearn this coping mechanism. People aren't dangerous. Speaking isn't dangerous. I can talk without being tense or scared. Next, guided questions and reflections. Childhood and early experiences. When did I first notice myself feeling anxious about stuttering? I don't. Is that a space in there? Yeah. I don't exactly remember. I just want to check if there's any spaces. No, no. I don't remember exactly, but I must have had this from a very young age. I remember stuttering in primary school during presentations or even when talking about Pokemon. I remember struggling to say Giratina. Um, the 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 g. there were time were there times as a kid when I was laughed at, ignored, or corrected harshly for how I spoke? Constantly, kids, teachers, even hairdressers laughed at me. It destroyed my confidence. I felt stupid, incapable, and small. Sometimes I still do. How did teachers, parents, or classmates react when I talked or made mistakes? They'd laugh, always laughter. So there's space in that. Yeah, there's loads of spaces in there. Did I ever feel like being quiet or invisible was safer? Absolutely. Even now, in meetings at work, I can't speak up. Not because of a stutter, but from sheer fear. The weird thing is, I think I'm actually an extrovert deep down. I want to talk and share my thoughts, but the anxiety freezes me up. When I do finally speak, I stutter. When I'm put on the spot, my mind goes completely blank. Speaking and communication memories. What situations made my speech freeze or block the most? So let's say work, ordering food, talking to strangers or cashiers, any customer facing role, and early interactions with new friends. What happens in my body before I stutter? That shortness of breath, blank mind, racing heart, sweating, tight chest, tight throat. Do I replay conversations afterwards? All the time. I also plan conversations ahead, but I still freeze or stutter when it happens. What thoughts come up right before I speak? Usually none. My mind just goes blank. Self image and identity. Do I see myself as awkward or someone who can't talk well? Emotionally, yes. Logically, no. I know I'm someone who's learnt these patterns from childhood anxiety and isolation. It's not that I can't talk, I just learnt bad coping mechanisms that I now need to unlearn. How do I feel about my voice or the way I sound? My voice is high pitched and comes from the top of my throat. I used to speak with a deeper, more black sounding voice at school. I noticed that helped. Later, I practiced an American accent for hours every day, and my stutter basically disappeared. But when I switched back to my natural voice, it returned. This tells me it's psychological, maybe tied to identity and tension in how I produce sound. Is there pressure to sound a certain way? Not really, but I'm curious about learning British RP accents to see if it improves fluency like the American accent did. I'd also like to train myself to speak from deeper in my chest rather than my throat. It feels more natural and confident. Do I compare my communication to others? Yes, I wish I could speak as effortlessly as other people. Social anxiety side. When do I start feeling anxious around people? As soon as I sense I'll have to speak, even if someone just looks at me, do I feel watched or judged even when nobody says anything? Always. Do I avoid eye contact or certain situations because of fear of freezing? Yes, constantly. Have I had bad social experiences that stuck with me? Many, they still play in my head as proof that I can't talk. What do I believe will happen if I stutter? Realistically, nothing, but emotionally, I imagine people judging me or thinking I'm incompetent. What's the worst case scenario my brain imagines? People thinking I'm not good enough, that I can't handle basic conversations. What beliefs have I picked up on? I must sound perfect. Talking means being judged. Mistakes equal humiliation. And then moving forward, what parts of me want to be more confident or expressive? My voice. When have I felt most fluent or free while speaking? When I'm alone. What would comfortable speaking feel like? Being able to say exactly what I want without fear or tension. Analysis. Okay, key themes in my brain dump. Modeled anxiety from my mum. I absorbed my mum's constant fear based worldview, danger, germs, threats, loss. Remove that space. That early, the world isn't safe conditioning created a nervous system always. What is loss? Let me remove loss. Danger, germs, threats. Yeah. Um, danger, germs, threats, fear. That early, the world isn't safe conditioning created a nervous system always on alert. It wasn't just ideas, it was embodied fear I internalized before I even had words for it. Parental overprotection and lack of exposure. My mum's overprotection meant I missed the normal social trial and error most kids experience, the learning to talk to people, reps. Because she often spoke for me, my brain never got to wire social speaking as safe. When I finally faced those situations, my nervous system treated them as first time danger. Okay, and then remove that space. Freeze response and physiological conditioning. The tight throat, blank mind, short breath I experience aren't random. They're signs of the freeze response, a survival mechanism my body learnt as a child when speaking felt unsafe. Now, that old protective reflex fires automatically in adult social situations. Bullying and humiliation as reinforcement. Being laughed at for stuttering reinforced the link between speaking and being hurt. Each humiliation became a new data point confirming the subconscious belief when I speak, bad things happen. Self improve. Okay. Authority equals danger. My fear of speaking to teachers, bosses, or cashiers likely mirrors my early relationship with my mum. Authority combined with unpredictability meant submission and silence. It's not rational, it's a conditioned association. Voice and identity disconnection. I found fluency when using a deeper or American accent. That's huge. It shows my stutter isn't mechanical, it's contextual. When I shift identity through voice, I bypass my habitual anxious self. The active voice interrupts the anxiety loop, a key insight for practice later. Sibling difference as evidence of emotional absorption. My sister distanced herself from my mum's anxiety and stayed socially freer. I, the compliant and receptive one, absorbed the emotional climate. A classic example of how temperament and what does temperament mean? A person's or animal's nature, especially as it permanently affects their behavior. Okay. Temperament and environment shape anxiety patterns. Um, Self image built on judgment. I carry perfectionist social beliefs. I must sound perfect. People are judging me. That keeps my nervous system in constant performance mode. That mental tension becomes physical tension, which becomes stuttering. Fluency in safe settings equals emotional, not mechanical block. My ability to speak fluidly alone or one on one confirms it's not a speech defect, it's a conditioned anxiety pattern. I'm fluent when my body feels safe. Yep, it's continuing. Yeah. Okay, root cause hypotheses, working models. These are not diagnoses, just practical frameworks to guide how I'll work on this. Primary hypotheses, conditioned fear response. I learned implicably that speaking and social exposure are unsafe. My body now reacts to social cues as threats, triggering muscle tension and cognitive shutdown. The stutter is the surface symptom of a deeper freeze response. Second, reinforcement, humiliation, and ridicule. Childhood teasing and public embarrassment cemented the speaking equals fear pattern. strengthening avoidance and internal shame, development gap, lack of social reps. Because I was isolated, I missed formative years of trial and error social learning. My brain never got to habituate to normal social un- unpredictability. Each social encounter feels like a test, not a conversation. Identity based block. My natural voice is tied to my anxious identity. When I switch to another accent, I bypass that identity, which suggests my voice is neurologically and emotionally linked to my self image. The work ahead will. I don't know if I believe that one. My natural voice is tied to my anxious identity. When I switch to another accent, I bypass that identity, which suggests my voice is neurologically and emotionally linked to my self image. Work ahead will involve. Uh, Let me go back to chat. So, the only thing I don't fully agree with is this. What I want to say is, I mean, yeah, my normal voice is tied to anxiety. As I said, I feel like I'm not talking properly. It's like I've learned bad speaking habits from not speaking a lot, and it's not efficient. I'm speaking through the top of my throat, for fuck's sake, and my breathing is all over the place. Like, I need to physically learn how to talk. That's what I need to say here. Got it. Here's a revised section. Identity and physical speaking habits block. My natural voice is tied to my anxiety. When I speak normally, the anxious energy influences how I sound. But beyond that, I feel like I haven't learned to speak properly. I've developed inefficient, tense speaking habits, like speaking through the top of my throat or having irregular breathing. It feels physically awkward, like I need to relearn how to talk, not just mentally, but physically retrain my breathing and vocal technique. Yes, that is exactly correct there. Cool. Core emotional beliefs. The world isn't safe. People will judge me. Speaking is dangerous. Mistake slash humiliation. These beliefs keep my body on edge even when I logically know better. And last thing, awareness summary, understanding the roots of my social anxiety and speech disfluency. Looking back, I can see that my social anxiety and speech disfluency weren't random. They were learnt responses. Growing up, I absorbed my mum's fear based worldview. Her constant warnings about danger, germs, and people taught me that the world wasn't safe and that speaking up could bring harm. Because she often spoke for me and protected me from social situations, I missed the normal practice kids get learning how to talk, make mistakes, and recover. When I finally faced the outside world, my nervous system treated every interaction as a threat, my throat tightened, breath shortening, and mind going blank. Those early psychological reactions were reinforced through bullying and humiliation at school, which confirmed my subconscious belief that when I speak, bad things happen. Over time, this became a conditioned freeze response. Speaking equaled danger, silence equaled safety. I also learnt to fear authority figures, teachers, bosses, cashiers, because they unconsciously reminded me of the unprecedented power dynamic I felt at home. My sister, who didn't absorb that same anxiety, became proof that this wasn't genetic, it was environmental and emotional. When I use another voice or accent, my stutter often disappears. This tells me this isn't a mechanical speech problem, but then this one needs to change as well. Then I guess this one needs to change as well. When I use another voice or accent, my stutter often disappears. This shows it's not a mechanical speech disorder, but something linked to how I habitually speak under anxiety. The deep voice or American accent helps me step outside my usual tense, inefficient speaking patterns and an anxious self image, showing my body what it's like to speak more freely without fear. The real world now is not only about bringing the safety back into my natural voice, but also physically retraining how I speak, improving my breath control, relaxing throat, and learning more efficient speaking habits. That's beautiful. Shit, where did that go? Sorry, this isn't pacing properly. At the core, my nervous system learns four unhelpful beliefs: that the world isn't safe, people will judge me, speaking is dangerous, and mistakes mean humiliation. The truth is, these are just old lessons from a scared childhood. My job now is to retrain my body and mind to feel safe in expression through breathwork, grounding, gradual exposure, and rewriting my internal story. I'm not broken, I'm unlearning outdated protection patterns every time I speak in every time I speak despite fear. I'm teaching my body that it's finally safe to be heard. Okay, cool. That's fucking great. That is fucking great. Let me copy that. That's fucking great. Okay, this is fucking great, mate. I'm just typing into chat now. Okay, so here's everything we said. Now I'm going into the practice phase, into the knowledge phase, probably tomorrow to think about what I need to do to actually like fix. Well, um, I'm gonna do that tomorrow, but I'd love you to paste in some shit you're thinking right now so I can have some thoughts before the next session. Okay, great. Let's paste that into chat. This will be the end of this podcast, dear. Just want to see some thoughts. So, chat saying reframing your stutter as an anxious symptom. See, I've already done that. Really, I think over the last few years, I think over the last year or two, I've accepted it's not a stuttering problem; it's an anxiety problem. Actually, from last year when I was in the hospital because I almost killed myself, the nurse said, "Look, you don't have a stuttering problem, mate. You have an anxiety problem." I think that really shifted that for me. Neuroplasticity and rewiring your brain. Your brain's wiring around social anxiety and speech was formed in childhood. This can be changed. Wonderful. Breathing and voice training. Yes, most definitely. You notice that your natural voice is tense, higher from the throat, but when you speak in a different accent, your voice fluency improves. It's vocal technique, 1000%. Working on core beliefs and cognitive restructuring. Your core emotional beliefs are huge roadblockers, so just CBT therapy. Understanding your triggers and safe zones. You feel most fluent and free when alone in safe settings. So think about what makes those settings safe. Blah blah. Authority figures and childhood conditioning. So yeah, research dynamic and emotional absorption. So techniques like emotional detachment or mindfulness could help here. Develop a plan for small, manageable wins. Yeah, da, da, da. So quick to explore breathing, voice, CBT, exposure, mindfulness, books. A few quick reminders for you, not broken your condition, blah blah blah. Okay, that's fucking great. Man. That is honestly really good. Now I've got a lot out of this session. I didn't even think that I'd hit 2 hours. That is fucking great. I feel like this has been a great session. I'm so happy that I've recorded this as well. Oh my god, I'm so fucking happy. I can't wait to share all of this information. So what I need to do now is I'm going to close this down, and what I'll do with this is I'll probably read over it here and there, but make sure that's saved. Cool. Close that. What I'll do then is I'm going to um I guess just leave this for the day because I've almost hit 2 hours here. Okay, cool. I'll leave this. I'll upload this. Fucking fantastic session. Thank you. If anyone listens to this shit's lit, bro. That's just time. I'm finna get there. That's a good starting point, though, for real. Okay, cool. Bet. In a bit. One.